TruthSeekah and/or its affiliates are not responsible for any strange phenomena that may occur during or after listening to this podcast, which may include the following: heightened senses of awareness, psychic abilities, UFO sightings, alien contact, time loss, out-of-body experiences, ringing in the ears, ESP, lucid dreaming, increased synchronicities, astral projection, telepathy, stronger intuition, levitation, miraculous healings, and/or remote viewing. Please be advised to listen at your own discretion.
Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? To a place to walk on troubled seas, faith to stand when I don't believe. I just wanna be with you. Won't you come and take me away? I just wanna be with you. Won't you come?
You are now locked into the TruthSeekah podcast.
Gargoyles! Psychics! Everything's ungodly! Dark savage!
Streaming live at TruthSeekah.com.
She's not a Christian!
Give it up, y'all.
Your portal to the paranormal, esoteric, and all things spiritual.
She's tampering in dark-sided stuff!
And now, your host, TruthSeekah.
Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? I'm your host, TruthSeekah. This is the TruthSeekah podcast. We're going to be diving into some deep content today. We're going to be talking about all things spiritual, spirituality, psychic abilities, mediumship, and things that go bump in the night, man. This is what we do. So looking forward to this discussion today, and I hope you guys are ready as well. So I can't go any further without saying a huge thank you to everybody who has been supporting my work via Patreon, everybody who has partnered with me, and you just believe in the vision, man. You guys are awesome. You guys are the enablers. Thank you guys so much. Shout out to some of the newest patrons we have within the last week or so. Shout out to, let's see, Jonathan, Jack, and Wayne, and Jordan. Thank you guys for coming on board, believing in the work, believing in the podcast, believing in the music. Couldn't do it without you. And a special thank you to everybody who's been partnered with me for some time now. You guys rock. If you want to support, head on over to patreon.com /TruthSeekah. There you get access to my entire discography of music, which is 10 plus albums. I've done over 200 songs. There's a bunch of exclusive content there. You also get access to our Thursday night School of the Mystics, which is the community aspect to what we're building here with the podcast. So we practice activation, one-on-one training, and so it's been some really good stuff. We do courses together, and we're going to be doing that tonight. So 7 p.m. Central every Thursday, you get access to that by any level of giving. So head on over there, check that stuff out. Bunch of cool stuff, my meditations, everything's available there. Patreon.com /TruthSeekah. And so thank you guys for that. Also, just a quick event I'm going to plug here. May the 3rd and the 4th is Encounter Memphis. So I will be in Memphis, Tennessee. We're going to be doing a hangout there Friday night, and we're going to be doing a musical concert, and a bunch of people is going to be performing, and that's going to be awesome. Kind of like a meet and greet. So Friday night, and then Saturday, the whole day will be a day of ministry. We'll be doing activation, meditation, one-on-one sessions, essential oils, gong therapy, so much stuff. So if you're in the area, if you want to travel, head on over there to TruthSeekah.com or EncounteringGod.net and pick up tickets. I'd love to meet you guys. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on my guest today. My guest is Bill Phillips. Bill, welcome to the TruthSeekah podcast, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, man. I've been looking forward to this conversation. And you've got an eclectic bunch of books and work that you've been doing, and doing this for a while and doing it really well. So, we look at, I have a lot of guests on, and everybody's at different levels in their walk and in their business and in their careers and stuff like that. But you seem to have it together, man. So I'm looking forward to this conversation. So
Thank you so much.
but it wasn't easy, right? So we talked a little bit before we went live, some of the stuff that you have to go through, finding out who you are. You talk about psychic abilities, mediumship, and what that whole world involves, but it's not easy. So let's just start off just giving a little bit about your background and how you kind of came into being, the psychic medium Bill Phillips. Let's just start with some background.
Absolutely. I really feel that guided to say first that anyone who really has an awakening to discover their abilities, that there's usually some form of trauma that happens that sort of breaks the heart open and allows us to be more present, to pick up on that energy, and that vibe. And so for me, it was a little bit earlier. I had a very traumatic childhood. My parents both suffered from drug addiction, so I was kind of tossed around as a child. And when I was 6 years old, my mother actually kidnapped me. She took me from California to New York, where I was with her for 3 years, kind of like bouncing around from place to place, fending for myself. Unfortunately, her addiction got to the better part of her. So I was taken back to the West Coast 3 years later, and it was going from the same extreme to the other with my father on the West Coast. And I was actually kept from her for almost 6 years because of what had happened. And she got sick. Within a week, she died of pancreatic cancer that we now know is caused by her addictions. I was able to fly out and see her on her deathbed after almost 6 years, before my 15th birthday. And as you can imagine, I was her only child. It was a very traumatic experience for me. I thought I was losing my whole life in that moment. But 2 nights later, I woke up actually to her in the room talking to me, and it was extremely comforting, but it was extremely confusing to me as well, not understanding enough about that realm, and having had a Christian background. There's a lot of emotions going on there. So from that point forward, that was my aha moment, my awakening moment. And for 3 years, I kept having these experiences happen that really led me to further understand the other side and understand what I was experiencing. And 3 years later, I found myself in a metaphysical shop where they were teaching a class on mediumship and psychic development. And I didn't know what I was doing there. I kind of went there on a spur. It was very random. But when I was there, I was sat with a random woman, and I was able to connect her with a dear friend that had passed away from a suicide of a prescription drug overdose. And just to kind of give this this vision for you guys, it really wasn't what I had experienced seeing on television or in the media, like The Sixth Sense or anything like that. It was a much more subtle experience for me. Like, it was in my mind, it was in my body, and I had to trust these hunches that were coming through to me. And so I held her hand, and within a few minutes, I saw blonde hair, and I felt a female presence, and then I saw a J initial. And then a minute later, I saw a table with prescription pills overflowing off the table. And at that point, a teacher had walked by, and she heard me, and she said, "How would you interpret what you're seeing?" And I said, overdose. It just came to me. And the woman broke down crying and had explained that her best friend, who was that J name and blonde, had committed suicide of a prescription drug overdose. So for me, that was my first experience really having that validation in that moment. So from there,
How old was you during that time?
I was 18.
18.
I was 18. And so I was nervous. I was excited. There was a gamut of emotions happening within me. So I told some friends, and they told some friends. And so I kept like practicing with random people that I didn't have a connection to. And every time there was something that came through that was very substantial. And even if it wasn't in the moment, I was getting calls afterwards, explaining like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know what this meant now, but this is extremely significant to my family." So for me, it was really just kind of getting out of my fear with it, out of my doubt with it, and just trusting that connection.
Wow. Man, even just that story there's so many questions that I have to really kind of dive deep into some of that stuff. So when you were seeing the spirits early on, when you were visited by your mom, now you said that started happening for, a period of like 3 years or whatever. Was it always your mom, or was there other spirits walking through the room, or being able to see them out the corner of your eye? How did that look, and was it just your mom that for those 3 years? How did that work?
And I actually left this part out. When I was a child, 4, 5, 6, I was terrified to go to sleep by myself because at night I would see faces floating around me and the mouths moving, but I didn't hear anything. I just saw all these things. And so my mom told me, oh, it's your imagination. You watch too many scary movies. She was not at all a believer in that until she actually crossed over herself.
Yeah.
So she was so as a child, when a parent tells you that, your subconscious mind accepts that command. And so for me, it totally like closed me off in that sense until years later when she actually herself crossed over. So after that experience, she did come to me several times over the course of those 3 years in very like, you know, I don't want to use the word ghost like, but just I could feel her very strongly around me.
Yeah.
Within that time frame as well, a lot of things happened where definitely saw things corner of my eye, almost like things like people running past you, type of thing like that, and waking up to just different presences in the room, but not knowing what to make of it, and at that time, I also was wanting to explore my own energy and my own connection. So I delved into things like astral projection, and understanding sort of how the two worlds interact simultaneously, so that was sort of my reference going into it. And every time I found myself like going to that place, I always had a different encounter or a different experience. But for me, it was foreign, just kind of allowing myself to have the experience and understanding that it was more a part of me than I realized, like as a child having the same or having similar experiences as well. It was something that was sort of ingrained in me, but I didn't quite understand it at that time. And being a teenager and not knowing your own identity yet, it was very challenging for me to accept that truth at the time. I wanted to run from it. My grandmother, who had raised me as a Seventh-day Adventist Christian when I was living with her, had a whole different philosophy. So I was sort of in this in between where I didn't want to share with her. I didn't want to hurt her by any means, but I also was having my own truth happen. And it was going against what I was experiencing or, from her perspective.
Yeah.
So I had to really own my truth with that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let me ask you this, man, because I was having a lot of encounters when I was a kid. I remember, 4 years old, of just waking up with beings in my room or beings pinning me down to the bed and I can't move, and seeing, shadows and those faces, man, when you're in that state of REM sleep, about to fall asleep, and there's faces and there's reliving timelines, and you're in another world for a few minutes, and it's just weird stuff. As a kid, you have no idea what it is. I want to know, because you said that your parents were addicted to drugs, and so we know that there's a lot of different drugs that open up portals or gateways to what we would call demons or unclean spirits or something like that. Do you think that your family's drug use may have opened up some type of portal within your home? Because my mom and grandmother, I come from New Orleans, right? And they would burn candles, but they would have parties, and all types of drunk, shady individuals would be in our house talking to us. I have a memory of they were having a party one night, and I was just a little kid, 4 or 5 years old. And I was talking to one of their friends, some old drunk man. He was drunk out of his mind. And I was in mid-conversation with him, and this man, they left me inside with him, and he just fell completely backward onto the floor, almost like he died. But in mid-conversation, he just like lost consciousness and passed out drunk. There's all types of weird people, especially with drug addiction, and there's shady people. People have bad intentions to rob you, all kind of stuff. Do you think that some of that may have opened you up to be having encounters in your room as a kid because of the activity that your parents were involved with?
That's a great question, and I do believe that it could have played a part in that. What I've come to realize over the years of channeling spirit and their messages is that a lot of times people that have addiction or are numbing themselves on that level, a few things happen. what I find is that a lot of them are actually very in tune and very psychic,
Yeah.
and they're wanting to sort of numb those senses because it's too much for them to handle.
Oh yeah.
And the same thing, no one's going to understand them. They're going to feel maybe mocked or ridiculed or judged. So they go to this other place that brings them comfort from within because it kind of numbs those senses. But at the same time, what that does as well is it actually lowers your vibration. So if you think about like your immune system, and when your immune system is lower, you get sick and all these things happen. The same thing happens on an energetic level as well. So if we don't keep that in balance, we're more prone to being at a lower level of vibration. And what happens is that we attract that like vibration. So we attract those dark digits, and we attract those forces that aren't of the light to us. And so what I feel happens is that it's a snowball effect. It's like this cycle that happens where somebody can be stuck in their addiction because it gives them this comfort, but at the same time, it's the cycle of attracting these sort of negative experiences and these negative energies to them. So yes, I definitely do believe that there is some truth to that, but I also believe that in a way, when someone's under the influence, their inhibitions are actually out, you know what I mean? So they're really wide open. So it's a double-edged sword, really, if you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying. And so especially, you've seen memes, and a lot of people talk about this now, how we are drugging our prophets and our seers, the people are, who can hear the voice of the spirit. They can hear it, but they can't interpret it. They don't have no way to figure out what it is. We reference the Bible a lot. In the Bible, there was a school of prophets that they would teach you how to hear the voice of the spirit. They would teach you how to discern. We don't have that anymore. We're kids having these crazy encounters and forced to figure it out for ourselves. Maybe there's a new age store. Maybe there's a church leader who has some experience in those spiritual realms, or maybe not. Maybe you will be as a sheep thrown to the wolves and have to figure this stuff out for yourself. And I think that's where most of us come from, and it could be hard, man. And if you can't shut those doors up or quiet the voices on cue, guess what'll do it? Alcohol, drug addiction. It silences the voices. And so the pharmaceutical companies are drugging the prophets to silence those voices because they, I kind of think it's by design, honestly. But that's definitely something that's happening. Have you seen that? Like a lot of people who can't balance the energies and getting on having, ADHD, star seeds, and people whose mind just operates a little bit differently. So we'll drug them and give them these prescriptions so that they are more normal or something like that.
I absolutely have, and I'm being reminded of a few stories where I've actually worked with people before that were quote unquote schizophrenic, or diagnosed that way. And what I found with just speaking to them and relating to them is that all they wanted to know is that someone didn't think that they were crazy, or that someone knew what they were going through. So I remember meeting with this man, and he was having all these crazy people in his head talk to him and stuff. And I really tried to explain to him that whole vibrationary element of it, where you're more in control of this than you realize. You can command them, basically. And I know that it was helpful, but I also know that the medication part of that as well can also do the same thing that the addiction does. It has a similar effect if it's not used properly, and I'm not saying that it's not for everyone. I do believe that there are situations where maybe it is needed, but on a massive level though, what happens is that, maybe we think we're depressed or we're this or we're that. So we go somewhere, and the first thing that happens is that we're prescribed a pill to sort of numb that sense away. So we're all designed, we're all here as a soul having this human experience. We're all designed to understand intuition and understand energy and understand, sort of like parallel universes. We are designed that way, but being in this society nowadays, it's kind of it's a double-edged sword because there's a blur between which is the real truth. Is my truth the real truth, or is the therapist's truth the real truth? So I really feel like what's happening in the world now is that there is an awakening happening, but it's not always easy, like you were saying. And I really feel like for each individual, it's all about understanding what their truth looks like and not having someone share it with you. It really comes from within,
Yeah, and whenever you're more comfortable in who you are and you do the, what I'm saying, all the inner work, and then you're vocal about it, people resonate with it because you're embodying their story. You're telling their story, and so they can relate with it. They'll listen to a podcast like this, and there's something that grabs them. You know what I'm saying? And usually it's someone just to, like you said, let them know that they're not crazy. I've been talking about a little bit. So I really, I have a background in the occult, dark witchcraft, got possessed by demons and stuff like that, and had to run to the church. I was going schizophrenic. It was very bad. I was opening up my mind to any spirit that wanted to communicate, just to see something in it. And I ended up getting, demonically oppressed or possessed, right? I ran to the church, but in that, I got healing. I found solace, but those are giftings and abilities that are from God, right? And there's so many biblical verses about the prophetic and moving in that. And so I had to kind of figure out what that was in the light, not in the darkness and the type of, misguided youth that I was, that did a lot of low vibrational things and then tried to communicate with spirits. You start attracting those type of spirits in the ethers, whatever you're doing on the earth. I was stealing people, involved in gang activity, robbing, stealing things and stuff like that. And when I tapped into that other side, I got to deal with the demons who are associated with that stuff. But in the church realm, right, and I started having different encounters like that in the church realm, and being able to know what people were thinking, being able to know what people did, and knowing even how, like, we would pray for people and I would know exactly what to pray for. It's the spirit speaking to me, hey, this is what they've been going through, pray for that. And it got to this weird, it started getting deeper and deeper, so much so I've been talking about it, like, when we would go minister, God did gospel rap and shared my story and stuff. When we would go minister, it got so prevalent that every time I would come down with an ailment on my way to that venue, and we would travel and go out of state and stuff. But right before we got there, I would start having heart palpitations, and I would feel like I was having a heart attack. And first off, a Christian would usually start rebuking the devil. Devil, I command you to let me go. I'm the healed of the Lord. I'm set free. You can't touch me. And guess what? It doesn't go away. You can't rebuke it. You can't pray it away. When you come to find out that those feelings aren't from the devil, they aren't from Satan, they're from God, that the Bible talks about letting Jesus was able to feel the infirmities of the people. He was able to feel their afflictions and know what they were thinking, and so with that comes an empathy. So I would go to these meetings and my heart would break, and then once I would move past the whole devil thing, I said, okay, God, what is it? He's like, and then the God would speak to me, the Spirit would speak and say, I want to minister to the brokenhearted. This is what I want you to speak to. Speak to the brokenhearted here when you get there. Other times we would go to churches, and then right before we get there, I would feel like I broke my back. My back would hurt. My spine would be out of line. And I'd start rebuking the devil again. Devil, get off my back. Loose my back right now. And it wouldn't go away. The pain would stay. I said, okay, God, whose back do you want to heal when we get there? And then we would go to the place. I would minister, and I wouldn't do anything until we called out that back injury, right? And whoever's it was, the person would stand up, come to the front. We would pray for them, command their back to line up with the word of God, speak healing over them. The spirit would leave me. They would get healed. Other times I would go there. I would go deaf in one ear. We'd be in a service, and I'd start panicking. Oh, Lord, my blood sugar's off. Why am I deaf? You start freaking out until you start realizing, hold on. I'm healed. I'm set free. I'm delivered. This isn't no attack against me. And so God's letting you feel the infirmities of the people. Does that make sense to you? Have you ever been like in a room and then had a crazy migraine, or like, where is this coming from? And it's someone next to you who's going through that kind of stuff. Do you feel that too?
All the time. And what you're explaining as well, besides it being empathic, it's also being a channel as well, and being that medium between the two worlds. And so you're being used as an instrument. And so that's really how this works. When if I'm doing like an event for like 200 people and I'm in front of everyone and I'm having different souls come to me, they're using my body as the instrument. So like you were saying, your heart palpitating, or these types of things, they're trying to show you what happened to them when they were here. And so that's the whole point of it, is to have that validation. So they come close to you. And here's the thing as well that I want to make very clear. There is a light and a dark to this. With anything in life, there's always a light and a dark. And so when I set up myself to go out there and channel, I am surrounding myself with the white light. And I actually do it in a meditation with my audience or with my clients. And I always bring in what I refer to as the Christ light. And that light is something that is a mirror. So anything that comes towards it that's not for the highest good, is bounced away from it.
Yeah,
so I'm kind of in this cocoon of energy that is protecting me from anything negative or anything that's not of my highest good. So I am, in essence, opening the door and giving permission to the souls that have crossed over into the light, that are in their heaven, that are in a good place. And so when you were talking earlier about, being in a different place and how that karmically kind of came back to you by the energy that you were putting out, it's very true. We get what we give. And so if you are, of the light, or if your intention is positive and pure, you're going to attract the souls that are in that space. But if your intentions are to have that dramatic experience or something along those lines, you will probably pull in something that's not really of the light, something that's kind of confused or maybe is even dark. And so for me, that was my biggest obstacle in the beginning, because once I knew what was going on internally, I wanted to be a Ghostbuster. I wanted to go help everybody, and what I found was doing that, it was a dramatic, crazy experience where doors would slam and things would fly off the walls. And I was like, this is not for me. Like, this is something else that requires a like-minded person that wants to delve into that realm. And my intention was to help people that wanted to connect with people that were in heaven, that were in a good space,
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
Absolutely. And we all have different ways of labeling it. So the voice of God, the Holy Spirit, guides, angels, whatever you want to label it as, it's the same thing,
Yeah.
And so I got the chills actually as you were explaining your story, because it's just such confirmation, validation that you obviously are gifted as well, and you're understanding the full spectrum of that.
It's so crazy, the fact that you have these experiences as a kid or a teenager, and then there's nobody to talk to, and you have to figure it out on your own, and hope that you're in a good space with people who are going to support you, because man, especially because, like I said, I come from the church realm, and we would talk about stuff like this. And if nobody is operating on that level, they have no idea what the hell you're talking about. You're crazy. You're a crazy person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Even though it's like all throughout the Bible. I love it. Like, all of this stuff is in there about, hearing the voice of God, seeing angels, being spoken to in the wee hours of the night. I mean, I will encourage you, when you get off of here, go read Job chapter 4. Just the beginning of Job. And Job talks about laying in his bed in the middle of the night when deep sleep falleth upon men. And it says that he looked in the doorway and there was a silhouette of a shape. And he said the shape was moving. It was moving, and you couldn't determine the outline of it because it was moving. And it was almost like a mist or a fog, right? And he said that that it was a spirit that brought a message to him. And that spirit brought a message. And we're talking about angels. What do they look like? Do they look like strong men? Do they look like little babies? Do they look like women? Sometimes they look like a mist, like a smoke and stuff like that. So that I'll encourage everybody to read Job chapter 4. It's a really good. And he talks about how his hair stood up on end. His hair stood up on his neck. And he was like, oh my God, there's a spirit here. And we all have had like similar encounters like that. Have you ever had anything cross over like into the physical realm, whether, you've had some dealings with dark spirits in the past, or have you ever seen any angels, any lights appear? You ever had anything appear to you in the physical form?
Oh, yeah, all the time. And actually, what I want to say about that is that the angels are the highest, purest form of energy. They've never actually been in a human form before, although they do sort of tap in and give that disguise at times when we're in that time of need, you
Yeah,
know?
exactly.
But a lot of times when I experience angels, I experience them as these sparks of light, kind of like twinkles almost, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? And I know that. And the thing is, to someone who doesn't know that, they might see it and go, "Oh my God, is my brain okay?" Or am I, what's going on
You're
here?
right.
But
You're right. Yeah.
that's what's going on. And the same thing, yes, I've also of course seen ghosts as well. You know, I saw my mom who was in the light as well, you know, and I've also seen shadows too. And the shadow people, those the ones that really weren't of the light, this was earlier on for me
Yeah.
before I understood what having those spiritual boundaries looked like, you know, and kind of having that protection around me. So now that I have that protection and I do it from the moment that I get up, I surround myself in that light. I don't really experience those shadows
I know.
anymore, those
Yeah.
dark
Same. Same.
sides. But I
Same for
see,
me.
yeah, but I see lots of sparks of light. I see lots of lights formations moving around, orbs, because when you think of it as well, when we leave the physical body and the shell behind, we are in essence just our spirit, our energy form, and that's what's around us making that contact. You know, it's like having a radio signal on and having the resonance be the channel through the radio signal. It's the same thing with the other side. And
Yeah.
so um, you know, I this is the reason why I actually wrote the second book, is because I wanted people that were in that space where maybe they weren't sure, or they were afraid, or they didn't want to be judged, to be able to read these different stories through other people's views, to see like, wow, I've had that experience, and I thought I was crazy, you know what I mean? And so I really wanted this to be sort of like a guidebook for anyone who was in that place, to kind of give them, to empower them to step into their truth and not to run away from it,
Yeah.
you know?
Definitely.
And yeah. And, you know, the other side likes to use lots of different elements to get our attention in the physical sense. So it could be, you know, numbers, music, electricity,
Yeah.
lights
Yeah.
flashing. There's so many different ways that it happens. But when you give yourself permission and take that fear away from it, and you're coming from a good place, the signs are all around. You know.
Yeah. And so that, I mean, that's one thing about your book too. It's just giving practical experiences, and so that really the supernatural becomes practical. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
And so all of these experiences, these crazy encounters and stuff, I believe that it should change us for the good. And whether it's, we're talking about church or any type of, religious activity or crazy encounter, whatever it is, like I'm open to whatever, as long as there's something practical that's released. And so even if I would point back to the story that happened in the book of Job, he's seen this spirit that brought him a message that changed his vibration, that when he left, it changed his awareness, and the message told him, it gave him a revelation about God, right? And so that he would, when he left that place with that spirit or whatever, he carried that with him, and he was changed. And so it becomes practical. Everybody has these woo-woo crazy encounters. Trust me, I love them. But they have to do something practically. How does it make you a better father? How does it make you a better co-worker? Do people love to be around you, or are you the laughing stock of the community? Like what happens there that makes you a better person? It becomes practical for me.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And I know that having these experiences, the other gift in it is that it actually allows you to have a stronger faith in the divine,
Exactly.
and a stronger faith in the unseen world. And this is why our angels, our guides, our loved ones that are in that good place are giving us that reassurance from these signs, to be able to be present in the moment and go, there's more to life than just what I'm experiencing right now. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not just here to like pay these bills and go to these, there's something larger happening here. And I really feel that that's the gift in it, is that not only does it give you that awareness, but it also gives you faith in something larger than yourself. And that to me is the most incredible thing about the other side, is that they're truly trying to help us live the best version of life that we can live while we're here, because it goes by so fast, you know?
Yeah, definitely, man. So you're talking about these lights, right? You're seeing these flashes of lights, whether you see them in the spirit or you see them physically or in the mind's eye. I've seen a lot of lights in the sky. I do a lot of stargazing, and I will see those angelic figures that are balls of fire in the sky. They'll light up. They'll do different aerial, phenomenon movements and things like that. They'll fly into constellations. I've seen a lot of crazy stuff. Have you ever seen any of those encounters? I don't know if you want to call them a UFO encounter. I believe that they're IFOs, they're identified flying objects, but they travel back and forth from heaven to earth and things like that. Have you ever had those encounters? Like a UFO encounter, if you want to call it that. I don't know.
I've never had an experience where I was, I don't want to use the word abducted, but I never had a dramatic experience like that. But I have had subtle experiences. I've also had dreams as well with this. And I feel like a lot of times too, what people don't always realize is that any kind of entity, whether it be an alien form or whether it be a soul who's crossed over, they will use the dream state to get our attention, because that's when we're really receptive to it, and the left side of our brain is asleep, so we're able to have those experiences. Yeah. So I definitely have had these experiences in the dream state, but people have them in the waking state as well when it comes to what you're referring to. And of course, I know, I have that truth in knowing that there has to be other life forms besides the physical life form. And I really think because there's no time and space, that we kind of create that here on the earth plane, that is it possible that these aliens could be people from the future coming back to us as well to help us? There's so many different ways of looking at that. And of course, that's not really my expertise. Mine is more so on the spirit side of things. But I truly believe that it's sort of all encompassing and all one in that experience.
We have a comment here in the comment section, and this is from Placing Puzzle Pieces, and says, Bill, you were great on Coast to Coast. Were you on Coast to Coast, AM?
Oh yeah, I was a few weeks ago. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Heck yeah. Cool. So yeah, you got some fans here. Good stuff.
Oh, awesome.
So there was a distinction that you made too. So when we're talking about spirits in the ethers and in the air and the space around us, but you also mentioned that some of the spirits that are in heaven. So there's a difference there. I know we've seen this in a lot of movies and things like that. Is there any truth to it that there's, especially those that people that probably have died a traumatic death, do they get stuck, or maybe like the Sixth Sense, they died and didn't know that they died and they're still here and they need to transition to heaven? Does that happen at all?
It does happen. There's not like some kind of statistic that I can say on like a percentage level, but that's the reason why we have hauntings and we have souls that are in that in between. It's really because they haven't accepted the fact that they're not in the physical form anymore. So when that happens, they're stuck more heavily to the earth plane, and they are lost just the same way that we can be lost in the physical. When that happens and we're not willing to accept that reality, it definitely does entrap us, and that's why when I was younger and I was sent out to these houses to help clear these energies, really what it came down to was there was tremendous anger and tremendous fear coming from them. And what I did was I just prayed. I brought in the Christ light. I called upon the archangels, and I just said to them, you are no longer here. You need to go to the light. And 9 times out of 10, that's what happened, but some of them can be very stubborn as well. And they like to sort of attach themselves to things that resonate fear, so whether that be a cemetery or an airport or whatever it may be, they find themselves attracting to that fear because that's what keeps them lower to the earth plane.
Yeah. So you mentioned actually working with these angels. We're talking about angels and stuff. And so, what I'm saying, biblically, when someone was going through a hard time or fasting or kind of dedicating themselves, God would send angels to minister to them and to help them. I don't have a lot of experience as far as like calling upon angels. I mean, some people live and die by it as far as like, I have my angel, I pray to Michael. That's a big thing in the Catholic Church, and they pray to, what is it, Michael, what I'm saying, Uriel, Raphael, these different angels to help them. You have experience with that? Do you ask for angelic assistance and things like that to kind of guard the atmosphere?
Every day, actually. Yeah, every day, whether it be like the minute that I get into my car, I'm like giving high fives to Michael, I'm giving everyone a high five. I'm surrounding myself in that bubble that I was talking about earlier. And that just gives me this awareness and gives me this feeling of cushion, of cocoon, of protection. And, people may see them at times. We all have a committee of them, whether we want to believe it or not. We're all surrounded by them. We're all surrounded by guides around us that are helping us understand our purpose here and our soul connection here. And that includes the angels as well. It's not just about like life and death situations. It's about life in general, and they're wanting us to live from the heart center and just to kind of not be disillusioned or not be jaded about life. They want us to experience it in a different form. And that's why they're around us,
Mm-hmm. Spirits, dealing with spirits and souls that have passed on, whether they're in heaven, whether they're on earth in the ethers. You deal with a lot of people in the spiritual community who really believe in reincarnation. Now, where does reincarnation fit in whenever you have disembodied spirits? Is that something that you believe in? Do you
Absolutely, yeah. And this all goes down to soul groups. I know that when we come into the physical body, we've had these agreements made while we were on the other side that, okay, you're going to be my mom in this lifetime. We're going to learn about love in this way. I'm going to break your heart when you're 18. We come in with these roles that we go through, and then when we do cross over, we're still connected to our soul family. So what happens is that, let's say that a father passes away. He wants to sort of work with his karma. Let's say he wasn't as available in life, or maybe he, abandoned his children when he was younger or something. He wants to make it right by them where he's at on the other side. And also he wants to be a part of that development and that ascension with them. So what I find is that typically a soul will stick with their soul group until they all kind of come back up again, and they go, okay, that was awesome. I learned this, I learned that. Let's go back and try it again now. And this time I was your dad, but I'm going to be your daughter in this lifetime. I'm going to teach you about compassion. So everything sort of revolves around learning these lessons in the human form, because that's when we're really able to put it to the test.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting. What do you, I guess just to stay on that topic a little bit, we've been talking about in our study group with the School of the Mystics, because I'm not 100% sold on reincarnation, as far as like I'm going to come back as another person, or I'm going to come back as a snail or something like that, right? And honestly, I don't know if I want to come back, as far as, you know what I'm saying? Like I don't want to come back as someone else. I would rather like be in a place where I can just be with my family and you know what I'm saying, remember this life and remember, everything that I've done, and be able to have my memories or whatever the case is. Just like almost forgetting the memories and forgetting who you were in this life. That kind of scares me a little bit, right?
And that's why we've all been blessed with free will. We've all been blessed with the ability to make those decisions, and nothing is set in stone. There's not a rule book that says you have to come back. Although a lot of people tell me, there's so much suffering in this world. Why would I want to experience that? Yeah. And on a soul level, part of being in the physical is to have the spectrum of emotions, to have the happy moments and to have the sad moments. We're here to experience all those different feelings while we're in the flesh, and the reason, so I know for sure about my truth anyways about reincarnation, because I've had my own experiences. I've done work, working on past life stuff, and at times as well, when I'm channeling for somebody, sometimes that information will also come through as well. That really validates. And a lot of times what happens is that fears that we have, phobias that we have in this moment or in this life are directly connected to a previous life, because the cellular memory is still with us. And that sort of, for me, is what validates that
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
So whether if someone like burned in a fire or was in the Salem witch trials or whatever, and then they are deathly afraid of fires here, there usually is a correlation between that.
Yeah. One of the things that we were looking into in our group that I was going to talk about is the fact that we were talking about how it could be encoded within your DNA from your, you know what I'm saying, from your family, from your grandparents, your great grandparents who may have died in the fire. So then you're able, you have that fear ingrained, you know what I'm saying, within you. I mean, there's a lot of stuff like that scientifically, like our fear of snakes, our fear of serpents and things like that, because like they you know what I'm saying, in the ancient world, they were, you know what I'm saying, a big deal. And there's a bunch of things that we're afraid of for no reason, but it's encoded within our DNA. So we were talking about how, like, you know, maybe, you know, some of these experiences that we know and these visions that we have may have been imprinted in our DNA. And so we're able to see what some of the things that our ancestors went through and some of the things that happened to them, you know?
Yeah, I think that there's truth to both sides of that, but I really believe that the essence of us, that cellular level of information, does travel with us over time, you know, and for some of us, you know, it could be the fire, or it could be, you know, tarantulas or whatever it may be. But we're also here, I feel like, as well, to sort of disconnect from that ego part of us and that fear part of us that wants to sort of rear its ugly head and get involved in our daily affairs. You know, we're here as a you know, we're here in that form to really disconnect from the fear and not to let it rule us, you know. And this all goes into our spiritual being, the fact that we are designed to be psychic and to be intuitive, and we're designed to have these connections. And the one thing that stands in our way with that is fear. That's the one thing, and that's the ego, that's the rational part of our mind that wants to kind of destroy anything divine coming through us. So really great question. And I really feel like anyone that's listening to this, to really allow themselves, to give themselves permission to have a belief in something larger than themselves. That's the first area that I feel like is very important, but also life-changing, is when you actually on a human and also a soul level give yourself permission to have that belief system. That's when things start to shift dramatically around us.
And you know what I'm saying, that could be a big deal too, talking about coming out of religion, and everything is taboo. And we talk about how, you know, people in religion, a lot of them aren't spiritual, but they're superstitious. They're afraid of their own shadow. They're afraid of the black cat that walks in front of their path. They're like, inwardly, even though they're older and they're up there in years, they're not going to walk under a ladder. Right. It's ingrained in them not to walk under a ladder because something bad's going to happen. So these essentially are like ungodly beliefs that are not real, and they're shaping the way that you know what I'm saying, people interact. And so someone here in the chat's talking about how she says, it says, Barb says, that's so wild. I don't drive on the freeway and I have no idea why. I'm over here trying to just accept this. I'm over just trying to accept it. I remember we actually got in a wreck on the interstate. It was storming and we had the music up, and I don't know why I just didn't put two and two together, but we were driving like 70, 80 on the interstate while it was storming, and all of a sudden our car just started, you know, doing you know, a 360 in the highway or interstate, and we went off the side, and I was going down a hill, and I remember just being scared, and I just screamed, Jesus! And right when I did, the car stopped before it slammed into the tree. And like, if we would have just a couple more inches, we would have hit a tree. And but I remember after that, I was scared to death to get back in a car, but really get on the interstate. When you're getting on the on-ramp and you're starting to drive faster, and like, it triggers you, because there's like this fear that you have there. And there's a lot of people there, especially with religion, is cognitive dissonance. Even though that this is the truth and this is what you believe and this is what makes sense, the cognitive dissonance won't let you filter it in because you've been told. So with a lot of people like you, like me, and a lot of people listening, you have to go through that unlearning experience and quit learning from, you know what I'm saying, the fear-based stuff, and really be, led of the Spirit, what the Bible says, led of the Spirit, and be retaught, to actually have your mind retaught and just break down everything. Religion is big, man. It is super duper big. It's crazy.
I totally agree with you. And I feel like that unlearning or that undoing is, or the unprogramming rather, is basically allowing yourself to go with what moves your soul. And I believe that, every religion, every philosophy has its truths and its strengths. And I really feel like we are here to sort of go through and decide for us on that soul level what best resonates with our evolution and with our understanding. So I was raised very Christian, and I uphold a lot of those belief systems still. But there are a few things that I have as my truth, and one of them is that the other side and the spirit world, that they do surround us, and they are trying to help us and trying to help us live the best lives that we can live. So going back to that undoing, whoever is listening to this right now, the biggest advice that I can give to you is to really just release, to the best of your ability, to kind of detach yourself from that fear, and to really know that we're all connected, and that's why we're here, is to have that soul to soul connection, and just to know that with an open heart and an open mind, you can have that same guidance from the other side, truly. And that's the reason as well why I wrote my second book that's called Signs from the Other Side, is for anyone who's maybe having curiosity or is unsure, just to sort of resonate with other people's truth, with other people's stories, to show you that there is something else out there than maybe what you want to believe on that human level, on that rational level, and just to give yourself a little bit of credit that there is something else going on in the invisible world around us.
Mm-hmm. This is a question that someone has in the chat. They said, this is from Jeff, and it says, how can I cleanse bad energy / demons from my home other than smudging? Is there any rituals that you can do, any prayers that can be said? What would you say to that?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that one can do, and smudging is very effective. It actually has a scientific component in it that destroys negative energy. But the thing is that it's kind of like putting a Band-Aid on something. It's going to come off, So yeah. I really believe that I would take a look at the land, what happened there. A lot of prayer, a lot of light, a lot of bringing in that higher vibration of spirit around you is very crucial with that. And also there's different practices as well. Some people believe that putting salt around the parameter of the home keeps negative spirits away. Everyone has their own sort of philosophy with it, but I really believe that it comes from an inner dialogue with ourselves and an inner belief with ourselves. So if you are truly praying and bringing in, the Christ light, bringing in the angels, asking for that protection, they're gonna deliver that to you. But you have to sort of walk the walk and talk the talk to match that vibration. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because we actually get into like a lot of terminology, like you've given legal ground for those entities, those spirits or whatever to be there. They may be attached to an item, like you said, attached to the land, attached to a home. You move into a haunted house. Well, that spirit is attached to that house, and you're kind of trespassing. You can't see it, but you're not just gonna pray it away. Like there's things that have to be done. But it is funny. We're talking about the sage, smudging, crystals, even maybe even your Bible, a cross, a necklace, a pendant. We have these rituals and these things that we believe hold power, when in the essence they don't, but it's the power of the ritual for us. Like this cross that we got at the Christian bookstore, or our, like the Bible itself, it really doesn't hold any power as this some type of charged instrument that we're going to hold up. I bind you in the envelope, holding the Bible or the cross. We see that on television and we kind of feel like that's real. But when we look at it, it sparks something within us. We look at the cross and we say, you know what, that cross reminds me of the work that Christ did on the cross. Or this Bible has helped me get through some really hard times, and it's going to help me get through this time as well. So, or the smudging or whatever the case is. And it's the power of the ritual. But like you said, getting down to the root of it, figuring out why this keeps happening. And doing a lot of one-on-one consultations with people, you find that out is that you have to get down to the deep roots. And so sometimes people, much like the pharmaceutical industry, they just want to treat the ailments. They want to treat, you know what I'm saying, like what's happening to them, instead of going to the root of the problem and really getting that healing. Because it's sometimes a little bit harder. It's a little bit more work, a little bit extra. People want a quick fix. They just want that quick fix. But you really have to do that inner soul work to really move down to the healing, and versus just saying a couple prayers and I'm good. Like, we really got to get down to the core, right?
Yeah, that's true. And everything that we use for that reflection is already available within us, you know. But I would also say as well, to know that we're more in control of them than we realize. And I think what happens is that people feed the fear and they go, oh my God, there's a ghost here, and it's not going to go away. Try telling them you're not welcome here. You are no longer living anymore. Go to the light. Like, you have to really have that command within yourself as well. And it all comes back to personal power and owning that power. So when you own the power and you tell them and you have that boundary and those rules, they will respond to that. It's part of spiritual law. They have to respond to it, especially if you call upon the higher, you know, angelic realm and the spiritual realm. They will be your bouncers basically in that process. You know?
That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff. Let me ask you this before we go. I got two more questions for you. So you talked about astral travel and different things like that. Do you access the trance state, and do you have to access the trance state? I know that leading the guided meditations and getting relaxed, it helps a lot, versus, trust me, when we do like guided meditations and prayers and stuff, and there's a difference from communing with family and then jumping right on here and going live, hey, this is what we're doing, versus, hey, I need a few minutes to kind of get my, you know, shut all my thoughts down, get in this place where I need to be to minister, to be able to hear and things like that. Is there certain things that you do to enter trance state? Is that a necessity when you maybe do a live event? Even though you do, like, I know you say you do like a guided meditation and get everybody in a relaxed state, which is beautiful. But is that something that you practice, like entering in the trance state, Kundalini yoga, things like that?
Absolutely. I that trance state is my calling card, basically, to the other side, you know. And so for me, and every day for me looks like, you know, meditation in the morning, chanting in the morning, basically anything to kind of pull me out of that rational part of myself. That's where I enter that trance space. And that's the channel. That's what connects us to the other side and into the other realm. So for me, it's not, I don't spend like a whole lot of time at this point. For me, it's a simple shift in my awareness. And also it's setting an intention as well. You know, that's kind of like the calling card, is giving your words and giving your permission as well. That also helps you enter that trance space. But it's a lot more subtle than people realize it is. It's very subtle. It's almost so subtle that if you're not fully aware of the here and now, it goes right over your head.
Yeah.
You know?
Definitely, man. I think it's as close as our next breath that we can explore it just through the breath, you know, focusing in on that breath and stuff. And so sometimes it's hard, man. Sometimes I'll jump right in, and you're doing a live broadcast, and like in broadcasting, they're like, dead air is not good. Like, don't have any dead air. Don't have those gaps of silence. But like doing this in the trance state, hey, to sit there and wait for a few minutes is where the power is, in the silence, in the stillness as well. So there's actually beauty in waiting, and even the term waiting doesn't mean not doing anything. You're actually doing something as you're waiting. So that's good too. Before we go, man, do you have another story that you can leave us with out of the book?
Oh, absolutely. There's so many stories. One story to me is so incredible, and it just shows how spirit works. And there was a man that lost his wife in her mid-30s to cancer, and they had a small child together. And you know, his belief system, he was, I feel like, maybe looking for more answers. And a few months after his wife's passing, he decided to start, you know, a new journey. And so he actually moved, and he bought a new house. And the house was being, put together and designed and everything. And his wife's name was Heather. And he went to the house. It was under construction. They were, they had kind of like labels on things of what they were going to paint and what they were going to do. And before he was standing in the kitchen, and on the wall was the color that they were going to be painting the wall in the kitchen. And he looked at it, and the color's name was Heather. And
Wow.
so that for him, and he was thinking about
Yes.
her, that for him, like, was his aha moment, like, oh my God, there's just no way. Other stories as well are, one story that happened to me, and my mom sends me so many signs every day. White butterflies, 143 as a code for I love you. But one thing that happened about 10 years ago was I was having my own human experience. I really wanted more confirmation, and I wanted it physically. So I made that command. I gave her permission, and my mom's name is Yvonne. So the next day I was on the road, on the freeway, and this car cut me off. And before any kind of rage could happen within me, my attention went to the license plate, and the license plate was customized. It said Yvonne on it.
Mm-hmm.
So that was like, I have the chills even saying it right now. That was my like huge confirmation, like 4x4 from the spirit world. Like, we're with you. We're always with you, So they're always sending us these signs, and it just takes a simple, shift of our awareness to understand what those signs are and how to pay attention to it. So in my book, I also do go through and give a guided meditation. I give a little bit of a background to my experience of how I discovered this for myself, with really the intention that whoever it's supposed to reach, that it will, and it will give them that awareness of, okay, I need to pay attention to this more.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So I just want to show you. So the book is called Signs from the Other Side, and it's available at any Amazon, Barnes & Noble bookseller around. So I truly hope that it reaches who it's supposed to reach.
Definitely, man. There's a lot of people in the chat really digging the conversation today. Let me just ask you this. I really don't want to, but the chat's asking me, just because the signs of the times, right? So as far as the return of Christ or the end of the world or something like that, do you believe that we're moving towards some type of apocalypse? I don't believe that at all, as that is some type of apocalypse, like the world's about to end. People have been saying that for thousands of years. For me, with those signs, is usually our world is about to end, our paradigm. We keep having apocalyptic dreams and cities being destroyed and tornadoes. It's usually about something we're going through. But a couple people in the chat want to know, do you believe that the return of Christ is near and then the end of the world is coming? Do you believe in any type of apocalyptic stuff like that?
I choose not to put my energy towards that, because I really believe it's feeding a fear. I believe that Christ's energy is already here, and we have the ability to listen into it and to connect with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I also believe that there is massive transformation happening right now, and it is happening on a certain way, and that could be looked upon as an apocalypse to kind of see where we're at right now as a world and government and all those things. But I do believe that there is going to be this sort of evolution on a global level, but I don't believe it means the world coming to an end. I do believe that it means a new way of living in the world, though.
A new age, even, right?
That's going to happen. Yeah, absolutely.
Moving into a new age.
Yeah, and this earth is so old. It's been here for so many years, and everything does cleanse. So eventually, that will happen here as well. It's already being discussed, and then years, in the future, there probably is going to be a shift like that. On some global level. But right now, we're in this awareness, we're in this awakening space right now. You know what I mean?
Definitely. Yeah. Well, man, I really enjoyed our conversation. Thank you so much for coming on. And everybody go check out his book. Like I said, I will put a link in the description to the Amazon and Barnes & Nobles and all that good stuff. Make sure you guys check that out. And Bill, I really appreciate you coming on, hanging out, man. It's been a blessing.
Thank you. It was an honor, and I love the work that you're doing, and thank you so much for having me.
We'll have to do it again, my friend. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
All right. God bless. Later.
God bless. Bye-bye.
Bill Phillips, ladies and gentlemen. Good stuff. Some great comments there, man. Some great people hanging out in the chat. There was one thing that we was talking about, the different phobias and the different fears and superstitions even. And somebody was mentioning, don't step on the crack or you'll break your mother's back. And so like people, like as a kid, you heard that and you really thought if you stepped on that crack, something bad was going to happen. And it was funny just to see some of you guys bring that stuff up in the chat, because I used to do that too. But I always have to make sure you step over the crack, never step on. There's all these different things and, these different traditions and stuff. And I'm telling you, religion plays a big part of that. And you don't even know it. You're scared, you're trying to work through some stuff. Even when you're making progress, man, the pendulum will swing back and undo all the work that you've already done. And so, yeah, it's time to come out of her, my people, so that you will not be a partaker of her sins, man. So moving from religion and moving closer to Christ. You don't have to leave Christ behind. You take Christ with you in everything that you do. You're a fool if you don't. If you leave Christ at the door, you're silly. It's not good. It's not a good idea. He's talking about tapping into that higher vibrational, those beings, the higher vibrational beings. It's Christ Jesus, the highest vibrational being, that all other entities, they have to bow down. Like they have to listen. Like every knee will bow and every tongue will confess, whether on this side of eternity or the next. It's going to happen. So anytime like people get into some weird places, man, but it's through, evoking the name of Jesus, man. That is the highest name. Even in the chat, everybody's talking about how, in the foxhole, like when, people scream out and call upon the name of Jesus, because there's power there. People having demonic encounters, they scream out Jesus. And like I said, I was like coming upon that car accident and almost having an accident, screamed out Jesus or whatever. There's power in that name, man. So that's beautiful that even, you know what I'm saying, Bill recognizes that Christ energy is a white light of Christ and moving in that. That's beautiful. There's a lot of good stuff. Indigo Seti, you mentioned in the chat, you said, talking about that our name is our persona, and that we actually grow into our names, right? That's so true, man. Because I even today, it's funny you mentioned that, because today I was actually looking up my name, which I know what it means. It's actually a Hebrew name. My name, Derek, which is Hebrew, and it means the way. When you pull up a Strong's Concordance or whatever, and you look up the way in Hebrew, it's Derek. It's beautiful. So it's like the way seer, the path maker, right? Making a way where there is no way, the path clearer, the thicket clearer. And then I look at my name, TruthSeekah, right? Then this name that I've chosen for myself years ago. And there was, I didn't know what this name meant. I did not know that I would grow into it and embody it, of just being one who seeks after truth and giving myself over to know the truth and to continually seek after it. And I kind of grew into that name over the years and didn't even know it. I thought it was just a cool name. Literally, I seen it, like when I first seen it, I seen it on a t-shirt or a hoodie, and I was like, you know what, TruthSeekah, but it was an ER. But I was like, you know what, I'm going by that, and I grew into it, man. And the name. So like in the Hebraic tradition as well, your name, like if your mother was going through travail in birth, or if she didn't want to have you, if you were an accident, like they name you after that stuff, and you're known by that, because you carry that name with you everywhere. That's the name is your persona. You carry that with you, and people know you by that. So you grow into that stuff, man. You're known by, oh, he's the one that is cursed of God. He's the one that is blessed of God. The word, I'm saying, Michael. So all the L's, the L, Michael, Uriel, Raphael, they keep going on. The L's mean of God, Michael, heard of God, the beloved of God. There's all of these different names that they walk in and they embody. So that's really dope with the personification of the name. So I wanted to bring that out. I seen that in the chat there with the names. Thank you, Christy, for the donation. I did see that. Thank you so much for that. It's wonderful. Again, we're talking about activating these giftings and abilities, man. Again, the Bible had a school of the prophets. School of the prophets. Like, That's the school. You went to it. You learned how to do it, and it's beautiful. They loved the music. The prophets, was always continually playing music. They understood the power of vibration. They understood the power of repetition, the power of melody. So the prophets always played music, and so just to see how they operated, and there was a school like you were raised, and that gifting and ability was seen in you as a child, and it was cultivated. So now we're over here in the West. We have no idea what's going on. Somebody's having encounters and seeing spirits and hearing voices and stuff. Just put them on Prozac. You know what I'm saying? Put them on all this different. Listen, I've seen children, hyperactive kids. They're just rambunctious kids with a lot of energy. And they're playing with my daughter. We're hanging out with the family. And yeah, they're being rambunctious. That's what kids doing. It's nothing like over the top. But hey, 8 o'clock, it's time to take your medicine. 7 o'clock, whatever. They give the kid the medicine. They're playing, running. All of a sudden, like a robot, you push that button, it just powers down. Zzz. The kid's just sitting on the couch staring. Took her medicine, just sitting there. Like, hey, what's wrong with the kid? Oh, she took her medicine. Like, what? That's crazy, man. And the side effects that medicine has on people. And, the Ritalin and all that kind of stuff, and stuff that people have came up taking. Now we're dealing with those kids. Those kids are now grown-ups. A lot of them are suffering from all types of ailments now. That's pharmacia. It's witchcraft. Pharmacia. That's where we get our word pharmacy from the Latin. Pharmacy comes from the word pharmacia, and it means to make a concoction, to mix up these different chemicals and to take them and to ingest them. Everything that the Lord has given us is good, right? So there's natural things that grow that we can take that aid us, that, if you have pain in your body, there's natural things that you can take. The government's trying to take that stuff and regulate it. And just look at kratom right now. Like kratom was used to help people get off of opiate addiction, right? With less side effects using kratom. And now it's Schedule 1 in Alabama. You can go right across the state line to Florida and buy it at the gas station. But in Alabama, kratom is a Schedule 1. If they catch you with that, it's just a root. Kratom. It's a root. And if you get caught with that, you're going to jail for a long time. Schedule 1. All of this stuff that's natural, and they want to regulate it, and they want to tell you what to do with it. It's really crazy, man. Pharmacia and what's going on with the pharmaceutical industry. So really crazy, man. We got to be aware of what's going on out there. Someone posted, who's this Indigo, says it steals the spark out of them. Yep. It dims it, puts it out. That's crazy. Straight up magic, straight up witchcraft, man. But yeah, there should be a school, man. There should be a body of people, some people you can confide in and talk to. You need that. That's why we're here. It's not just me. I'm not an expert. I don't know it all. I know the one who does, though. And I can connect you with that person. Tap in. So that's what it's about. Growing together, cultivating that relationship with God, cultivating your spiritual giftings and ability, growing in relationship. Tolerance is beautiful, right? Part of that in there too. The scriptures, they had a school of the prophets. We have a school of the mystics. And a lot of times it's just hanging out, having conversation, having someone to talk to, like he said, to know that you're not crazy. Here's Chris Garner. He's mentioning about the different things that people are labeling disorders. It's not a disorder. Often it's a diet. Just change what you're consuming, physically and spiritually. Change what you're consuming. Garbage in, garbage out. Garbage in, garbage out. So that's what we're about, man. Tonight we're doing the School of the Mystics. We're going to do a hangout. I'm looking for some more course material that we can get into. I'm looking at a couple different ones right now. But we do practice that. We get off into groups and we get off into one-on-one, and we learn to prophesy. We learn to ask God what he would say to the person that we're paired up with. God, what do you say for that person? And learn to hear that and tap in. So that's what we're going to be doing. So if that's what you want to do, you want to learn in a safe environment with like-minded people, hit up the School of the Mystics. It's for any level of giving, you get access to that. That's $1 a month, whatever you can do, just to get access to the mailing list and the access codes and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, check that out. That's through my Patreon as well. I'm working on a new album right now. I'm a couple songs in it. It's also going to feature some other stuff that's on other people's projects. I know for sure that I've done features with. So I'm gonna put a couple of those on there. But my new album that I'm working on now, there's no release date, but it's called the ESP EP, Extrasensory Perception. And each song, just like I did Colors, where each song was dedicated to be inspired by one of the chakras, one of the different problems that we have within the body, and how to align that and what that means to me. The same way with the ESP EP is going to be dealing with clairvoyance, clairaudience, clairsentience. I'm already working on those. 2 of those are already available on my Patreon. So if you want to check that out, be sure to navigate on my Patreon and actually get those. But yeah, it's a themed EP, and you get access to all that kind of stuff on my Patreon like months before it's available to the general public. So I'm gonna go ahead and jump off here in the next few minutes unless anybody has any questions. So you guys let me know if y'all have any questions. I'd love to answer them. Anything like that. So I just got a few more minutes here. I love hanging out with the guys in the live stream, and this is the community. It's where it's at. So y'all let me know if there's any questions, and I know there's been some questions already, but I can't scroll back. So if you even have to like repost that or something, I'll try my best to answer your questions. And most of the questions that I had for Bill, I've already kind of went into, but there's so much more that we can break down. The School of the Prophets, again, like that's deep, because I'm big on the scripture in the New Testament that talks about the spirit of the prophets is subject to the prophets. Spirit of the prophets is subject unto the prophets. What does that mean? It means if you're a prophet, if you're a seer, and you're having these encounters in the spirit, you can't just go to anybody. You can't just go to anybody. You're seeing visions, go to your pastor, watch what happens. Go to your pastor, tell them that there's a spirit's visiting you in the night. They're going to pray against it. They're going to tell you it's demons. You need to go to a prophet, okay, so they can kind of unpack this a little bit. Somebody who has some experience with that. And they always, those people always want to explain it away.
Blessings, bro.
Blessings to you too, Danny. Thank you for the donation, brother. You rock. Love you, man. Hope to see you tonight. Go, you know what I'm saying? Go to these people. I'm saying it facetiously. Don't go to them. The Bible says don't throw your pearls before the swine. Don't do that, because they will trample them under their feet. Something so precious, something so delicate, they'll just trample it under their feet. They'll laugh at you. They'll mock you. They'll mark you. They'll scoff at you. Y'all know this is nothing new. This is why I do what I do. Because you've been laughing and making fun of us for too long. You've been drugging our prophets. Bob Marley, how long shall they kill our prophets while we stand aside and look? There's a passion. There's a zeal in me for this. I hope it's in you too. It's not good. It's not good. They laugh at, they have private conversations about you where they laugh at you, make fun of you. And you being an empath, you can feel it. You can feel it. You can. It's biblical. I can show you. It's biblical. You can feel it. It's discernment of spirits. You know that they're operating in the spirit of slander, in the spirit of judgment, in the spirit of bitterness. You can feel it as an empath. What do? Do you get bitter? Do you quit? What do? You stir up the gift of God that is within you by the laying on of hands. That's what you do. You delight yourself in the Lord. That's what you do. That's what you do. And it's so easy, especially if nobody else is having those encounters. But, just like Jesus told Peter, said, look, man, Satan has marked you. Satan has desired to sift you as wheat. But fret not. Don't worry. I've prayed for you. Just like he had that mark upon him, Satan wants to sift you too. Satan is the accuser of the brethren. He wants to sift you as wheat, get you alone by yourself. Nah, I won't have it. This is what we do, guys. School of the Mystics tonight. We have a Discord community full of beautiful people, full of beautiful stories, full of great conversation, jokes, cat videos, like everything, man. We do life together, man. That's what it's about. So thank you guys for believing in the vision that the Lord has given me, believing in my work. A lot of people, it's impact them. So, and I'm just telling my story. Nothing more, nothing less. This is my truth. If it resonates with you, good. If it don't, good too. I love you. Praise God. Brother Wayne loves you. We all do. So with that, I'm going to say peace and shalom. We're going to do this again very soon. Yep. Later. I'm going to play the outro. If I can find it. And it goes a little something like this. Hit it.
Your will so much higher than mine, so much higher than mine. Your so much deeper than mine, so much deeper than mine.
Well, that does it for this episode, folks. To hear more episodes of the TruthSeekah podcast, head over to TruthSeekah.com. And if you're wanting to support the show and get rewards, go to our Patreon page at patreon.com/TruthSeekah.